What's up, everybody? In this video, I have another one-on-one session with one of my subscribers, Brian. We had a fantastic time talking about commercial property, and in this one, you're going to learn exactly how I can take a 1% commission into hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So stay tuned. Again, you said you just got out of the military and you flew out to California from Texas. Tell me a little bit about your story and what got you started in real estate.
Well, real quick, Henry, thank you very much for having me. I was in the Army for a couple of years, 6 years, and then my brother told me a little bit about it, and I jumped right onto it, got onto the real estate train.
Cool. All right. So then let's rewind the clocks just for a quick second. So your brother's in the business, like you said, and it sounds like you guys are partners, correct?
Yeah. So I teamed up with him, trying to learn as much as I can from him, but it doesn't hurt to ask a lot of questions. I think the most important thing is to be hungry and look for it.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So a couple questions that we were diving into have to do with calling and I guess setting appointments. So let's dive into some of your questions.
I followed the manual, everything from what my brother taught me, from what the firm taught me. But I still have some issues, mainly trying to get those meetings. I engage with these conversations with these people, with owners over the phone, but I have two objections that I get most of the time. One of them is the market is shifting, the economy, there's a lot of uncertainty about a recession. And people are like, well, maybe right now it's not the right time.
Understood.
And then the second objection that I get is mainly, why do I need you for?
Got it.
I know what I'm doing.
Two things, right? So just before I dive into those two objections, I want to just get really clear. What specific leads are you calling?
So I'm calling for multifamily apartments. My brother has portrayed me and pushed me towards to just be an expert on multifamily apartments. Basically, it's trying to get leads into helping investors find undervalued properties and then make the money on the buy.
Typically, when I'm in this situation, which again, by the way, I just want you to know, this is like my favorite. This is my favorite stuff in the world. My team does the same exact stuff that you do. You want to bring them to the next step, which is the following. Hypothetically, I'm speaking to John, the seller. John, I can appreciate you want to wait. Is there a number hypothetically that if you got today that you would consider either accepting, moving forward with, that you would consider selling your property today? You want to go straight to it. Okay. So you say, John, again, I can appreciate you want to wait. A lot of my sellers are saying the same thing. I'm just curious. Is there a number that you would consider still selling the property if we can get it for you? That's the first thing you can dive into. Second thing is the following. Yeah, listen, I can appreciate you want to wait. Hypothetically, if I already had a perfect property for you to do a 1031 exchange into, would you consider selling the property today? Like if we already handled the reason why you want to wait, because he's telling you that he wants to wait because he can't find anything. If we already had the property lined up, would you consider selling the property? Because you basically want to handle the next question that he's going to have immediately. Because what happens is that a lot of people think way too far in advance for things like that. If you and I are just chatting about possibly selling your property, sometimes what happens is that the seller's just going to get way too heady and overanalyze all of the details, when in reality, like, listen, I don't even know if I want to buy your property, right? I don't even know if your property is a good deal. But let's at least have a conversation about this first. Let's get this handled first, see if this makes sense, and then we can handle the rest afterwards. They're taking everything that has to go into a deal and bringing it together, and that's why it gets overwhelming. However, if you break it down into simple, bite-sized pieces, they can make sense of it.
I mean, like for me, what I've done is one of the last open-ended questions that I make is, would you entertain an offer? I ask that question. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for the most part, it's just they close the question with a no.
I could say this, right? Like asking a question like that, I like to ask yes or yes question. It's sort of just like, would Tuesday or Thursday be better for you? It's a choice close. It's typically, right? In this scenario, I would say, listen, I don't even know if your property would be a perfect fit for us, but all I can tell you is that we're going through a 1031 exchange. I make all this stuff up. We're going through a 1031 exchange. We have to spend a great deal of money on another property very soon. I'd love to overpay for your property. We might be able to. I don't know that. Why don't we start it off with this? It sounds like you might consider selling it. You're more it's more the hesitancy around your next purchase. Is that correct? Take them off of all the stresses. Like, just want to clarify, the only reason why you don't want to sell it possibly right now is because you don't know where to move the money to. Is that correct? Why don't we figure that out afterwards? Let's set up a time for me to stop by the property, check things out, underwrite the deal a little bit, just to even see where I'm at. I don't even know if we're going to be able to do the deal. And then, so bring it back to reality, bring it back down to today, and then we can talk about the next step afterwards, right? So would Tuesday or Thursday be better for you? And just go after the meeting.
So when you ask these yes or yes questions, it's an open-ended question followed by a
Choice close. It's
Okay.
like, would an afternoon or evening be better for you? Would Tuesday or Thursday be better for you? Like anything that's a yes or yes question, because both options are fantastic options for us.
I see where you're going. I like it. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. And also just like stop taking what they say and thinking that it matters. I'm not saying don't listen. I'm just saying ignore it and continue. If someone says to you at all, by any means whatsoever, that they are considering selling the property, it just doesn't seem like the right time. The biggest thing is like, don't get me wrong, there's always a number.
I think it's more like because I see a lot of the same objections that I start to wonder, how do I tackle the same problem in a different way, if that makes sense? I get that, sometimes when we make these phone calls, they're not at their appropriate time, right? We're bothering them.
People have to realize that you have a 1% to 2% conversion rate on your first phone call.
Okay.
That means the other 99 or 98% of the time, it's going to take some follow-up. To just know that, like, I don't care what they say to me today, because I know I'm probably not going to close a deal with John, the seller, whoever, for another 5 to 12 conversations minimum.
Okay. Gotcha.
I know that our first conversation is 99 times out of 100 not going to end with a closing of a deal. All I'm trying to do, like I've said in previous videos, is take a pawn slowly across the board. I want to deepen the relationship, joke around with the guy, make him feel comfortable with me. Eventually, the next, obviously, I want to set an appointment, but it might not happen on the very first phone call. And guess what? You can even flip those calls 99 times out of 100 into a possible buyer lead. That's the cool part about this business. Unlike residential, you can almost flip every single commercial conversation into say, like, listen, I can appreciate you don't want to sell right now if they're really hesitant, but just curious, if I brought you a fantastic deal, in an area local to what you have now, would you be interested in possibly buying another property? Yeah, yes. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
great. Like, we have a few off-market deals. Maybe I'll send you something. What do you look for? And then now you're going to turn every seller lead or a dud seller lead into an awesome buyer lead. That was question number one. Question number two, let's dive into that again. What was the second objection?
The second question was they just don't want to get a second opinion. So like sometimes I'll ask, when would be a good time to meet? Maybe tomorrow at 2 p.m. or Friday at 10 a.m. Right? Yeah. And they'll be like, why would we need to meet? That's where I come in, where I tell them, well, I'd like to bring something of value to you, whether it's rent comparables and anything shifted or geared towards what they have, right? In that specific market. But I always get the same objection. I know what I'm doing. I don't need you. That's it.
What happens is, and I was actually, during my coaching session, I was literally just talking about this. Too many real estate agents only think through one lens. Because when you're calling up a seller, what are you looking to do?
Broker a deal.
Yeah,
right?
List the property for sale, right?
Yeah.
Most realtors see through this one lens of, I just want to list the property. I will tell you to shift the conversation and say, hey, I'm a principal buyer. You're the principal buyer. You're calling on behalf of your own investment company.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I call as a principal buyer, but I don't buy everything. I broker most stuff. And if it's like an unbelievable deal, I'll buy it. But what'll happen is that at least he talks to me like an investor. Like, listen, I'm not here for a listing. I'm a principal buyer, just like yourself. I'm looking for a couple more properties, and your property happens to meet my criteria, right? Or at least so it seems from here from the tax record. You said you might consider selling the property, and listen, no, I do not want a listing, but hypothetically, if we could bring you an offer today that might make sense, would you consider selling it? Yes. Okay, great. Well, why don't I stop by the property, shake your hand, at least you can see that I'm a real person. You go and not pretend, but like you go as the buyer. And guess what? You bring your client. This is exactly what I do. I'll bring two clients, and they both know the deal. I just say, listen, you guys are my business partners. Okay. I told him I'm the buyer. What's going to happen then is that I'm going to bring him a contract. Let's just say it works out. He wants $5 million for the deal. I'll bring him an offer for 5.15 million for the deal, 2 to 3% commission for me. Say my partner is buying the deal and he's paying me on top of 1-3% commission for the deal.
I like these strategies. Right.
It's a different attack.
What if I don't have a client or a business partner?
Bring your brother. Bring anybody. Go by yourself. That's okay. And like, listen, like when you're there, you're going to take a look at the property. You say, listen, I'm going to take some pictures. I'll take some notes, blah, blah, blah. Same exact thing you do as a listing. You're just not going to talk to him about listing the property. Get all the details. And guess what? He still might tell you he wants $5 million for the deal. $5 million might be a good or a bad deal. Who knows? You got to run the numbers. You now have a pocket listing. You have an off-market deal. And the only thing is that you don't have a sign on the front. But you still have, I guarantee your brother and somebody at your firm probably would have a buyer for it.
You're a genius. It makes
so you like, open. I just go the other route. So this is why, like, instead of I don't really care about a listing. I don't care. I don't need a listing. I never need the listing in order to sell it. Ever. But it's a different lens of seeing a deal.
It makes perfect sense. It really does.
Yeah. So like, and then this way, because like what happens is that in the commercial world, which is different than the resi world, and resi, you desperately need the listing because you probably don't have a buyer. But in the commercial world, we most of the time have a buyer because most investors are looking for similar product. And by the way, I guarantee you, again, for anybody who says that they don't have a buyer, like maybe you say that you might not have a buyer right away, over a 10 period of time, I meant to say like, call it a year, 2, 3, whatever it is. And I'm sure your broker, your office, your whatever might have somebody. And now you have a pocket listing that you can present them and say, listen, like this deal is $5 million plus 3%. I just go the other way. It's much easier. A lot of people deal with it in the sense where like they don't have somebody.
I don't know if you can tell I'm
you're thinking I get it. It's your wheels are turning. I love it. So let's dive into your last question. Let's dive into the last parts of it. So any last minute questions here?
I think you've answered my 2 top questions that I've had, the 2 top things that I've struggled with.
Sure.
And I had 3 questions, Henry, and the last one was how can I make myself valuable? But
so
you've already told me that.
No, because now the part about being valuable is just flip everything on its head. You want to be valuable to the investors who are looking for a great deal. Stop trying to be super valuable as an agent to the seller. You don't need to be super valuable to the seller, because what do you think is the most valuable thing to a seller? You can do nothing more valuable than get them a freaking unbelievable price for their deal. And if you get them an unbelievable price for their deal, they will pay you anything you want. This is exactly why I'll build my own commissions instead of dealing with, will you pretty please maybe just kind of sort of please list a property with me for 4, 5, or 6%? I don't care, because I'm going to bring them a deal and say, listen, I got you a contract today, net $5 million. Okay, my partner's paying me my commission, so that'll be on the contract. That's it. And if it's a home run deal, let's say the deal is actually worth $5 million and he's willing to sell it for 3.5 because he's desperately got to sell. Don't try to list it for $3.5 million. What do you do?
Hey, I mean, you list it for what the numbers came up with, and then you negotiate the commission, right?
Well, what you should do is that you find a way to buy the deal at 3.5. Become a partner in the deal at 3.5 because it's an unbelievable deal, or you wholesale it to an investor for $4.5 million and you can make $1 million in a deal. Don't just look through the lens of a realtor. This is exactly what I teach in my coaching program. Like, and everyone always goes like, I'm already doing well, or, again, I just got started. This is the different stuff I teach in my coaching program. So again, if anybody who's watching this wants to, jump into the coaching program with me, make sure you click in the link in the description down below. Brian, thank you as always for hopping on here. This was very much appreciated, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Of course. And looking forward to the next time. And other than that, I love you guys so much. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.